Museums, are they cool or are they whack?
And they're pretty whack. So I just got back from Chicago. I spent a week in Chicago, and the first thing I did when I got there was to go to the Field Museum, which is considered one of the finest natural history museums in the world. And it's huge. And, you walk up the steps and it's got the Greek columns, and you just feel like you're walking into an important building. And I wanted to go specifically by myself when I first got there, because I have a number of friends who worked on the new Native Voices exhibit that opened up a few months back or last year at the Field Museum. And so I wanted to go and see that, and I wanted to have time to wander through. And parts of it were cool, and parts of it were whack. And I left that exhibit feeling the same way I felt for years about museums, which is we're still, as Native people, we're still relegated to this realm of natural history, like the dinosaurs, right? The Native Voices exhibit is on the same side of the Field Museum as the dinosaur exhibit. And try as they might, even though this was curated by a lot of Native people, and I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble for saying this, and a lot of Native people have degrees in museum studies. And, that is a very viable educational path for a lot of Native people, particularly in areas where there's a lot of Native population, like, Institute of American Indian Arts has a museum studies degree. And I still have problems with Native exhibits in museums that are not owned and run by Native people. Like, I have been to the Diné Nation Museum in Window Rock, and I think that's a great museum. I've been to other Native museums, which the Pueblo Cultural Center is a good museum, has a good museum. But this exhibit, there was some cool parts of it. There was, when you first walk in, they had the logo that said you were on Native land that came from urban Native era. So that was cool. That was the first thing I saw. So that was cool. Then I walked in, and there was a room off to the left with this, and I apologize, I don't remember what nation he was from, but a young man who was a poet, slam poet, and also a skateboarder, and an artist, and had a lot of the things that he had done, very contemporary, very young, youth stuff. And one of the cases was just him talking about the racism that he had to endure in one of the local hospitals. And that to me felt real and relevant. And then you walk to the back, a lot of it is about arts and crafts. Like, museums like to show clothing, particularly if it's beaded, pottery, things like that. And then there was a little exhibit sort of in a semi-enclosed room in the center, and it was all about Chaco and Chaco Canyon. And Deb Holland, who has been photographed widely by the press, coming out to Chaco Canyon and talking about needing to have protections in place for the area. And I know Red Nation and a lot of our comrades in Red Nation have been fighting the good fight on this for years. But that's not who they interviewed. That's not whose voice is in this exhibit. And the voice in the exhibit is someone who helped curate the exhibit. They have a big picture of one of the actions that Red Nation participated in at the Bureau of Land Management building in Santa Fe. And I was there. a lot of our Red Nation comrades were there. And there's this big photograph of folks that I knew holding up a banner. And that's not whose voices you heard. So you didn't hear the voices from the people who were actually fighting the fight. You heard the voice of someone who's not participated in any of those actions on a street level, on an actual action level. And that just, like, I was shaking my head.